This is Uncorked, and I'm Cody Champagne.
You know, you and I have talked about I'm a leader in my day job at work. And I will tell you that 100% of that success is attributable to the books I've read that have given me a different way of looking at the world.
In this episode, I sit down with Brad Tenenholtz, the founder of Novelium, and we talk about all things from entrepreneurship to the art of writing. I hope you enjoy.
So we've been selling since about November, maybe a little bit before then.
And
I
remember around Halloween.
Yeah, it was about a little bit around Halloween. Yeah, and the whole thing, this whole thing has exploded before our eyes. I mean, you know, the thing just feels like a rocket ship. Which is great. I mean, it feels great. And then, like, you know, the only way I get to interact with users is through like the helpline, right? Like we have a little widget on the app where you can talk to someone, and occasionally I'll get into those calls, and it's, you know, about 50% of the time it's, hey, how do I do this? And the other 50%, it's like, this is amazing. Thank you so much. Or something like that. Right. I mean, someone's using this. What we hear though is like, you know, is this going to change? You know, like I was a paper and pen person, and now, like, is this going to get me onto a computer? Or like, I used to write with AI because I, like, you know, I had problems getting a story out, but now maybe I can do this.
Think about that for a second, because word processors have been out for decades, right? People have been writing written medium for untold centuries. We don't really know how far back we've been able to trace, right?
Right.
But to know that you've been part of that calculus for somebody to at least have uttered the words, to say, you know, I've been pen and paper, but I'm considering going to a tech deck. When Microsoft Word has been around since, like, I think it came across on the Pinta, right? Isn't that like, it's been around forever.
Well, it was the original word processor used by the Allies during the Normandy landings. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's to know that, like, these things have existed for so long, which are fundamentally like they were paradigm shifts in their own right.
Right.
But they still haven't bridged that gap for some people. There are still people writing with pen and paper. Right.
You know, one thing I like to think about is, like, since the dawn of I firmly believe that our society is run by stories. And it's the stories we tell other people and the stories we tell ourselves. I think we're lying to ourselves when we say that data is what drives movement in businesses and organizations. Because even if you told me a really compelling fact right now, the first thing that would happen would be I would make a story out of it to explain it in my mind, right?
Right.
I think society is run on stories. And since the dawn of human history, right? Like, since as long as there's been humans, the quality of your story is determined by your ability to tell that story.
Sure.
Yeah, you can, like, hire a ghostwriter, right? But that's a very different thing, right? That's very expensive. It's, you know, kind of sensitive.
Sure.
And then in October of 2022, something crazy happened, which was that you could tell a machine your story and someone could help you tell it better.
Yeah.
And let's be clear, like, that machine doesn't tell stories very well. It gets snippets well, but it doesn't, it does, like, anything into, like, long fiction or, you know, long prose at all.
For sure.
It's quite poor. But for the first time, the quality of your story could be on the merit of the story, not your ability of a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important thing.
And I think that's an interesting distinguishment, right? The difference between the story itself and the art of storytelling. Those are two very, very different things. And I think you're right. I think all too often good stories, good writers, I don't want to say good storytellers, because maybe the art of storytelling itself is lost on them. But really, we're talking about verbosity. We're talking about the command of language. We're talking about education, right? We could get into the socioeconomics of creativity and writing and how all of that plays in. But it's a fascinating nuance because it is very different. You can have excellent stories and maybe not have the means to tell them very well.
Right.
But that doesn't mean the story is not good.
And I think, look,
I love that.
the best possible version of this reality is that this is what finally enables all of those Lords of the Ring and Harry's Potter to be told that could never have been told before. Because the people with that idea in their head, I mean, it's hard to write a novel, and not everyone can do it. And
That's true.
If this technology, AI, is what allows that to happen, then it is potentially a beautiful thing. But there is a dark side to this too, which is that if 99% of all prose ever written is AI slop, the world is worse for it.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I brought this up, one of the things I wanted to do with Novelium was give people who didn't have the easiest time telling stories some guardrails to be able to produce work every bit at the level of the best authors in the world.
I love that.
And yes, a small part of that is powered by artificial intelligence, very ethically, that never trains on your data, that keeps your data private. But most of it is just helping authors keep the sort of executive function working properly as they write, keeping in front of them the names of their characters and locations and places, helping them organize a timeline, figure out their pacing, their lexicon. None of that stuff requires AI. And I think that's what Novelium is so good at.
I love that. And I think, I've tried to write using AI. And I've had some success with it. Like I've enjoyed the product, and it's definitely been an active process. I think that you could just say, hey, generate this and yada yada. And I think that there's plenty of that. And I think that's the AI slop that you're referring to, the M dash galore, right? That's not growth. That's earth changing, or however, whatever, however it does it. That's introspective. I can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
But in my own endeavor, I found that it required a lot of hand holding,
Yeah.
It required a lot of, okay, let's get back into the story. Let's get back into the story. Let's get back into the story. And doing that process manually, chapter by chapter, the end result, which I thought was pretty decent, I ran it through Novelium and I learned so much. And I built, like, I wrote this thing. Like, I didn't write. I mean, I worked with AI, I guess. I don't know. How does that work? I partnered with AI.
Yeah.
And we generated a thing, right? And honestly, it was very insightful to go into kind of almost like a bird's eye view of the novel, of the story, right? And to see, here's what you told. And I'd be like, well, hang on, I didn't mean to, and it changes things. It gives you perspective. Yeah.
So just like some perspective, right? So I work in cybersecurity for my day job, which I'll be leaving here very soon as Novelium grows. But
hey, we love that for you, right?
And I live at the intersection of cybersecurity and AI. So this is an area I know a lot about. So here's like some perspective on the issue from like a technical, lens.
Okay.
The second best model in the world recently got what's called its context window quadrupled in size. So it went from, so the context window is like how much the AI can know at a given time. And once you exceed the context window, you got to start a new chat. That's when the memory runs out, all that stuff.
Yep. I've hit that limit a few times. Yeah.
Right. So the best one in the world is now 4 times bigger than it was. And like probably still an order of magnitude short of where it needs to be to really be the writing assistant that people are looking for. And I'll just tell you, like, there's no models in the world that are bigger than this one right now. Getting that any bigger than it is, much less like 2 times bigger than it is probably beyond the limit of what models can do today. So
that's fair.
When we talk about AI slop, I want to like differentiate this, right? So I think anyone can read a paragraph or an excerpt of text and see M dashes and it's not this, it's that. We can all pick out AI writing by now. I don't think it's any secret.
Sure. Sure.
And, to the extent that M dashes and it's not this, it's that, tell a good story, I don't, we all have a voice in our writing, right? It's not so bad for AI to have its own voice. But
That's a fair point. I love that.
There is also AI slop. And AI
Right.
slop is when we don't remember, we said a character has, green eyes in chapter 1 and blue eyes in chapter 32, when her name was Colleen in, the beginning, but it was Kathleen at the end, when we were motivated by the loss of our father at the beginning. And then dad says, "Hey kid, welcome home, sport." 3 chapters later.
Right.
And these are the mistakes that AI will make over and over again, without fail.
Sure.
And, I think there is a middle ground here between I'm going to tell the story myself and I'm going to let a robot tell the story for me. And that's, seems to be quite popular.
Yeah. No, I really like that. I really like that. I think your characterization of that is very fair, right? And I think it's important. One of the things that I think is human nature is to put on this air of exclusivity, right? It's almost like a self-justification, like a self-defense, right? Where we put on this, we can't have any change around these parts, right? And I feel like sometimes we get that way around writing.
Yeah.
And AI, I think, I realize there are some horrendous things around, like we get into intellectual property theft, we get into authors being ripped off and just creativity. Just like, I understand that those things are very, very valid arguments against, but I think that more importantly, they are an ethical framing, right? Of how to use a tool, because that's what it is. It is a tool, and all tools, I mean, if you use a hammer the wrong way, you're going to have catastrophic results. So I appreciate the nuanced kind of way that you framed that up and allowed room to hold ideas like AI can have a voice, because it is an entity. Whatever it is, it's an entity of some kind. And I think it deserves the respect to be referred to as such and to have that type of agency and to have that type of, I love that. I think that's critical to have that mentality of openness as this conversation evolves, because it's only going to continue to do that.
Yeah, I mean, from the perspective of Novelium, if you're someone who doesn't like AI, I have a lot of sympathy for that. We don't force it on you. Sure. And if you're someone who wants to write with AI because that's what helps you tell your story, that's great too. And we can help you do that well. And I think that's the right balance to strike right now.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect balance. And I think that it's a well-reasoned balance, right? I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And we've known each other for a couple of years, right? We've had some conversations around just tech in general, and obviously your understanding of cybersecurity in this arena is leagues beyond my, like I can connect some dots on a kid's menu, right? You're over here ordering from the wine pamphlet. I don't even know what that is, right? So but what I'll say is that in the time that I've known you, I've only ever known you to put on a position that is well reasoned. So that begs the question: what the hell prompted you to start Novelium?
Frustration at every other tool that existed. It was built out of spite, by far.
Okay.
So
I'm
an author.
Tracks, by the way. Yeah. Knowing you, that tracks. Oh man.
I've been writing since I was like 12 years old. It's always been one of my favorite hobbies. I started with like fan fiction and, evolved from there. Now I'm into hard sci-fi, that kind of thing. So what really happened was I started what was going to be my first 5-book series. And I was understandably nervous about it was incredible the roadblocks I ran into before I even just started writing, just getting everything organized in the way I wanted it, because I wanted there to be a plan kind of walking in. So I started, I tried every tool on the market for this, right? So I started in just Google Docs because that's what everyone does. And then that wasn't good for organization. So I tried Obsidian. Obsidian was very frustrating to me. I tried Scrivener. I bounced off of Scrivener really hard. And then I went to World Anvil. these tools, I mean, you think Microsoft Word is old. Like they're almost like retroactive in their UIs. So I mean, I know how to write code. So I built a little tool for myself to do it for me, like the tool that I wanted. And I just started writing that way, found immediate success. And I showed that to a friend of mine, and she said, you know, could be that someone else might find this interesting too. So I gave it to her to let her try it. And then when I said, oh, hey, I can't really support this anymore, I'm kind of done with it, she wouldn't let me take it away. And that was kind of how I knew there was something there. And I kept building and I kept building. And eventually I thought, you know, maybe someone will pay for this. And that, I mean, really to this day, like every feature I add to Novelium is something that I just need for my writing. And that seems to be a pretty popular way to do product design.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's an organic approach, and it's, you know, for writers by writers. I think that's exactly the concept. You're taking feedback from your user base and learning, you know, new. You said yourself, like that's how you're evolving the product as well. Is this? So I love that. I think that's a really strong position to put on as a brand. And it's good to hear a company that's like taking that seriously, because there's so many today that are just like, just run it down the pipe, they'll be fine, you know. And I hate that approach so much. So I love that you take this position.
Well, and it's been really interesting what I've learned about writers and writing, like the art of storytelling, through building this product. So I mean, I give you one example, but there are hundreds. So there's this big debate in the writing community: are you a plotter or a pantser? So a plotter means you write out your stuff ahead of time. You have like an outline, you have character sheets, world building, all of that stuff. And like some subset of that is what becomes your manuscript. And then there's pantsers who appropriately fly by the seat of their pants. So like every year, Stephen King sits down, takes a deep breath, and exhales 100,000 words.
Right.
And that's the novel, right? Like that, he's done. There's nothing that exists outside of that point. So, you know, talking to so many writers and getting to see data generated by Novelium, what I've learned is that actually there's no plotters and there's no pantsers. We're all just the same person. The question is, do you do it up front, or 20 to 50,000 words in, do you pause and go, wait a minute, what was her name? And then suddenly you're 6 pages of outlines and character sheets and world building in.
Right.
And it just matters where you're developing it, which has been very fun to watch.
I love that perspective, because I think a lot of dynamics where we're set up with this dichotomy of it's either this or that, is a lot of times a hybrid, right? And I love that. I love the.
Well, how did you write? So I think people should know you're also an author. How did you write? Were you more in the plotter camp or the pantser camp?
So it was kind of more pantser camp. Okay, so here's what happened. So I wrote a couple of chapters organically by myself a few years ago, and I just stored it away. It just kind of was just sitting there in a dusty folder on a desktop somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, new computer, need to back this file up. Now it's dragged into a backup / right? So it's like, it's just buried in there. And then, you know, last year I was like, okay, I was kind of going through some stuff in life, and I was looking for a creative outlet, but I didn't really want to do the minutia. Okay. So I decided I was kind of exploring ChatGPT at the time. And I was just kind of like, okay, so I want to work with you on this project. I'm going to give you kind of a chapter at a time. And we just kind of worked through this iterative process. And it was, okay, I like this, tweak this, let's change this. And it was a lot of it acting as ghostwriter, me acting as editor, right? And a lot of back and forth. And then chapter after chapter after chapter, finally built a product that I felt was a first draft, right? And then, but I felt fairly confident with it. And it was interesting because when we were talking about Novelium around Halloween, between Halloween and Thanksgiving last year, right? So I I had taken this product that was like an iteration of these couple of chapters that I wrote years ago, right? And was like, okay, let's expand this storyline out and let's take it somewhere. And I took it there, and it was fun. It was a great exploratory process. And then when I ran it through Novelium, it found things that I had intentionally designed as like setups for the next book as plot holes. And I was like, haha, you tricky thing. You found the thing right off the top. That means that it worked, right? And I was like, that was when I was like, oh my God. Like, it was just right off the top. It figured that out. I was like, okay, perfect. Because I want people to read the book and then get to the end of it and be like, wait, now I got to read the next, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole point. So the fact that it was like right off the top, hey, critical plot hole alert. How do you feel about this? I was like, I love that. I love that you found that. So that was my process. Sorry.
Definitely have had like user questions around like, am I being a little too obvious here? Like if Novelium finds it, does that mean it's not subtle enough? And like, no, it's designed to be kind of the average reader. So if you want someone to be thinking about this thing, you kind of want Novelium to find it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And the way that it framed it, and then it like kind of sorted back to where it pulled from.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, no, that's exactly right. That's where I wanted to plant the seed that this was the case, and then it turned out that that was a wholly different case. Thought you were opening a case of apples, and it turned out to be like, I don't know, uranium. I don't know, something completely different.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the mirror, like reflecting my work back from like an unbiased perspective.
Yeah.
That was really helpful for me because it found things that like I had an eye color thing, which turned out to be, it's part of it. Right. But the way that it was flagged, I was like, okay, good. Then it's tracking these things. It's interesting. It was interesting. I was hooked from the beginning. This product is fascinating to me.
I appreciate you saying that. That means a lot. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping a lot of other people feel that way too.
Yeah, I think that if people, if you're serious about writing, if you're serious about wanting to tell a story, let's just start there. If you're serious about wanting to tell a story, whether you believe in your own storytelling ability or not, especially maybe if you don't, right? But you've got a story that's worth telling. I think that if you're from the beginning of that iterative process, Novelium can be very useful, right? You've got the focus mode where you can just dial in and just start writing if you're going to be a pantser for that session, right? But if you're going over to, what was the other one, a plotter?
Yeah.
Pantsers and plotters, right? Okay, so if you're going to be a plotter for that session, then you can go dig into all of the plotter tools, right? It kind of combines the entire writing brain into one system. So no matter which side of that process you're working, it's there. You don't have to go from one app to the other. And I think that that's really useful. So I agree. When you say you hope a lot of people find value, I think they will. I firmly believe that they will. There's no reason not to. If you're serious about writing, then you'll see the value in this.
So, I'm a cybersecurity expert, so I've always got my eye on, what's happening geopolitically and internationally with cybersecurity. Probably won't surprise you to know that there's a lot more attacks since AI came about.
Sure.
Claude Code is, at this point, probably the most sophisticated hacker on the planet, which is terrifying because everyone in the world can have access to it for $20.
Oof.
So what we're seeing, and this is going to come back around to writing, don't you worry. It's not just that the volume of attacks is increasing, but the sophistication of those attacks is increasing as well. So previously, when you did your threat model and you said, yeah, but like this person doesn't really exist, right? Like who is the guy who's going to know how to do X, Y, Z and also know who I am? We don't need to defend against this, Right. That person exists now. Very often that person exists. And what that's resulted in, like the single biggest impact to this is IP theft. Ransomware is kind of already topped out. They were doing as much of that as they could. So now, especially the People's Republic of China, Iran, and India, looking for anything that they can get their hands on to steal from an IP standpoint is high priority. A lot of Google accounts being hacked right now. A lot of like research paper tools being broken into. So what has been fun with Novelium is we track this stuff, so we know when adversaries are trying to break past defenses. We don't disclose any of this because we don't want to give them any advantage. But I would say we're doing, it turns out when your writing tool is written by a cybersecurity expert, you do pretty well against this stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's naturally, right? Like organically that would happen.
Yeah.
I love it when things align like that. Makes life easier.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that I want to do at work that are just like not cost effective, right? Like it's just an added layer of protection that nobody needs. I don't think anyone signs up with a writing tool thinking to themselves, I better have MFA on this. Multi-factor authentication. But
okay, thank you. I was like,
yeah,
deer in headlights, like, yeah, what?
Novelium does, and it has from the beginning.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. It's been very fun to do all of the security things that I wanted to do, but like I never had the opportunity to do.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, and it's always handy when one vocation lines into another, right? You take this life of investment into knowledge and self-improvement that you had to, because it's not like this is a slow moving industry, right? I mean, things change by the minute. And to stay on top of that long enough to be, I mean, let's be clear. It's not like you're like answering the phones. Did you turn it on, turn it back off again, right? Like we're talking about like you get paid to go speak at big events about these topics. Like this is like you're not like
March.
right. Like this is your like you're not. I guess what I'm saying is you're an expert in your field. And objectively verifiably so. And to take that skill set and translate it into this labor of love for a tool that you built for yourself, right? Like the fringe benefit that every person who ever uses this platform is going to get from you just being who you are as a person is crazy. Hey, everybody, you just get like this really great security just because. That's because you should.
It's very kind of you. I appreciate that.
That's just facts, man.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what else we could talk about. I mean, it'd be cool to talk about like the art of writing and like the writing industry and like how publishing is changing and all of that stuff.
Oh, I imagine that. I mean, any number of those things would be great topics. Talking about the art of writing, I mean, that's something that has been evolving from the time we first wrote C Spot Run or whatever language it was originally written in, right?
Right.
And it's fascinating because like your human perspective, as your own ability and command over language evolves, your understanding of the world evolves with it because you have more language to assign to more topics. So you therefore understand more topics tangentially because you have language to articulate them with, right? Which then expands your horizon of knowledge. So now it becomes this exponential growth curve. The more you educate, the more you must educate, right? That's just how it goes. And it's fascinating because it seems like writing has evolved very similarly as this collective language, right? Like our own individual command of language changes our own interaction with the world, but so too does this collective language we all ascribe to, right? And it has evolved as writing has. Shakespeare had, 150,000 words to play with in his time?
Yeah. And we have more than that now.
A couple, right? It's just, like he was 6'7" wasn't a thing in Romeo and Juliet's class. Like they weren't talking about that.
There's one writer I work with a lot and she has a binder and she loves her binder. And that makes so much sense to me now that I've seen what the alternative is. So yeah, I think, a tool that actually works with you instead of against you or sort of not at all,
right.
That is going to take
as is the case with some. Yeah. We won't name any names, but you know who you are.
Yeah. And every writer knows who they are.
Right.
And
right.
I think there are some tools that get it closer than others, right? I think
when
a tool is there to connect you with another human and encourage, make writing more accessible, I think that's great. And that should
I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's not enough of that, and there's not very much of it.
I agree. Well, and I think it comes back to that exclusivity mindset that we as a species like to put on. And I think that writing, academia in general, is this just bastion of unassailable knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate the drive to make it accessible. I think that that's important.
Yeah, and like when you talk about exclusivity mindset, I think about this a lot, that entertainment and fiction and knowledge and just so many things are kind of on this like race to the bottom of like, how much shorter can I make this content while maximizing views and engagement to get what I need out of it?
Right.
And I will tell you that when I've really wanted to learn about something, that 3-hour YouTube video essay is definitely the place to start. Even if it's long and rambly, that person's going to know what they're talking about.
Yes. YouTube University is one of my favorite places.
Absolutely, dude. Crash course, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, writing is the same way. I think it is like long form stuff, whether it's long form fiction, nonfiction, you got a biography. I think that is like, nothing has replaced that in the modern media ecosystem. That will always be important. And, you can decide not to engage with it, but I think you will be worse off for it.
Sure.
You and I have talked about, I'm a leader in my day job at work. And I will tell you that 100% of that success is attributable to the books I've read that have given me a different way of looking at the world. And, again, the best case scenario in this new AI-driven world is that we enable so many more of those stories, those great stories, to be told, because we take away this element of executive dysfunction. How difficult it is to do the project management of novel writing. Just getting things together.
The minutia of it, man.
The minutia, the memory. I mean, it's hard to do.
There's a lot to it.
And if we manage this correctly, I think that's a likely future. And that's kind of where I'm trying to take it.
I'm trying to read the next Harry Potter or the next Lord of the Rings or the next, for sure. Like we need more stories in the world. I agree with you wholeheartedly. That's my favorite part of humanity, is the stories we tell.
I think it's like the only thing that matters. Yeah. Like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like even when you dream, when you lay in bed at night and you think about the world you wish you were in.
Yeah.
You're telling yourself a story. Like at the end of it, that's all we have.
It is. I mean, even if you go through like the ugliest, gnarliest, worst experience in the world, did you get a story?
Yeah, but you should see the other guy.
Hey, I'm just like, it's critical, right? And there's lesson in every story. And if the whole name of the game is like this improvement of us collectively, like learning to resonate at a higher frequency, so maybe we're not walking around bashing each other's heads in all the fucking time. The only solution to barbarism is education.
Yeah. And like the only solution to like happiness, I think, is just continuing to elevate yourself and work on yourself. Yeah. And reading is a really, really good way to do that. And if we can bring even one more great story into the world, and we've brought a lot more than that, I'll tell you by now.
I love that. I love that.
That's a success.
Excuse me.
That's absolutely a success. And I think so here's something interesting about the literature market, right? So it's very trendy out there. So especially romance novels, but novels of all types follow very well-established forms. They're very tropey, right? So if you look at like a biker romance has like kind of a certain series of plot points you want to hit. Yeah. And if you do that right, you got a successful biker romance, right?
I understand Alexander Skarsgård's going to be in a new gay biker romance.
Big day.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah. So what happens is once in a while, a writer will figure out a new formula. They'll take a biker romance, they'll take away the motorcycles and give them hockey sticks, and suddenly you have an HBO hit, right?
I see what you did there.
Which is how that happened. And I think, to the extent that we can accelerate that evolution and, build the branches on that tree even faster.
Yeah.
All we're doing is giving ourselves more potentially amazing Canadian classics like I mentioned before.
Right.
But some really great stories along the way.
Oh, wow. Now, I think, I think you're onto something there because first of all, they say you're supposed to leave the world a better place than you found it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think by bringing something to fruition that even if a single story, like you said, even if a single story gets told just a little bit better, or a single story sees the light of day that never would have otherwise, that's legacy. That's a contribution to the cause, right? And I think that, man, I don't know that I've ever done anything in my life that I've looked at and feel could say that was a moment where I made a contribution to the cause. So seriously, hats off to you, because that's not something a lot of people get to say that they've done. You made a thing, man.
Have done things, but I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that distinction too. Yeah.
It's going good places, and I'm glad people are using it to make their dreams come true. It'd be great to hear more about how you think of storytelling and,
Yeah. I feel like the best stories told, again, there's a moral. There's some nugget, at least, of something that is trying to be communicated that can only be told through story.
What really compels you to tell a story? What makes you go oh my God, I have to write this down?
I'm a big fan of synchronicities.
Okay, elaborate.
So when I'm going through life and I see something that just happens to be, I don't know, highly coincidental. Okay. And it's coincidental in a direction that is empowering or makes me feel like I'm on the right path. Right. Those moments they feel like the movie Serendipity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moments like that. And I think we've all experienced them, right? You go to a vending machine and there's a Coke in there already. Right? I'm assuming everybody's had that happen to them at least once in life. If you've gone to vending machines with any regularity, right? You've seen something. But when those moments of like when you're looking in the sunset it's just a little bit prettier than it normally is. Right?
Yeah.
Or I like to go walk through the gardens on a regular basis. I walk through the botanic gardens weekly at least.
Yeah.
When they're in season. And, sometimes the air is just a little crisper. Sometimes the birds are just a little bit cleaner. You can just hear things. So when life is like that, when I'm in those moments, I find scenes that I want to share with people.
There's actually a lot of research about that. So
really? Okay.
Yeah. And this has been very helpful to me when I'm struggling with writer's block or a lack of creativity. Getting up and moving your body is a great way to stimulate your brain. But more than that, if you go somewhere you aren't usually, somewhere that mildly distracts you, but not a lot, we call these weak connections. it stimulates the brain to do things it doesn't usually do.
Yeah.
You hear a lot about people who like go to the airport and suddenly have a great idea for a book. Or like when you're standing in the shower, right? And have that thought.
Right. The shower thought. Yeah, that's a big one.
There's a lot of evidence that just like changing things up a little bit, not in a dangerous way, just something a little bit out of the norm can help you break through things. That actually happened to me just recently. I was flying somewhere and I was like, oh.
I love that.
Yeah, and I got there.
I love that.
Yeah.
See, but that's, I think you're right. It's almost like you get into this liminal space in like IRL, right? Like it's just enough to keep your engagement, but it's too overstimulating to really take it all in at the same time.
Yeah.
So you kind of enter this limbo almost.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing that happens. I think that's what happens when I go to the gardens. I've been going to this place for every major life event for probably the last 15 years. Right. So I went there the day when I found out I was going to be a dad. Right. I went there when I was considering proposing. I went there when I was considering divorce. I went there when my grandfather passed. Right. I've seen this place change over the years, but still be the same place. And to be the same person who has also changed over the years, but still be the same person, coming to the same place that has also changed, but is still the same. It's just there's a juxtaposition that puts me into this space where I can process life in ways that I don't normally. You know, so I can appreciate that. Honestly, that's where I'm at. When I feel like I need to write the most, that's usually where I'm at. Like that's where my head starts turning.
There's something so profound about recognizing that you're not just on the ship of Theseus, but you are one. That, you know, that show you saw as a kid, if you were to see it again right now, somehow for the first time, would hit differently because you're a different person.
Yeah.
And I think like the recognition of that, there's something very powerful there from a storytelling perspective. As the number of things getting published every year continues inexorably to increase, I think we'll see more and more, you know, very nuanced, very niche fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. I think there should be a library for every interest.
Yeah.
I mean, the words are free, right?
Right.
And I think that's
all it takes is time and creativity.
Yeah. That's the best thing about the age we're moving into.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what happens when, you know, Harry Potter is not the only wizard story told?
Yeah.
Not that he is. Like, there are obviously countless others also, but not to diminish the value of any of those. But you know what I mean? Like, what happens when that's not the go-to? Because which one? What do you mean? Like, there's like 80,000. I'm looking forward to that day, because then we can get back to having nuanced conversations, because the chances of people overlapping and having experienced all of the same things, because we all still have that same finite time demand, right? So then we can get into original conversation again. Like, let me tell you about this thing that you've probably never experienced, but it's my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, bring back, I'm the only one in my friend group who knows about this. Bring back, we didn't all see the same front page of Reddit or TikTok today.
Yes.
Like, there's something that is unique to me that I can share with you because I'm the only one here who's consumed it. And I have a lot to tell you about.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like a love language, sharing something that you love with someone
Dude,
else.
so is. So is. There was this thing that absorbed a portion of my life, and it was so profound to me that I want to share it with you.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, here's something I think about every single day that I've had no other excuse to talk about than right here, right now with you. And you're going to sit and listen because this means a lot to me.
Right.
Those are beautiful moments.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, I need to go say goodnight to my children.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go do that real quick, and then I will be back here in just a moment.
Yeah, sure.
And then I did this really fun thing where I forgot to bring it in for a landing when I came back. So we're just going to shut it down here. Brad, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you again soon. Thanks for hanging out with me. This has been another episode of Uncorked. I'm Cody Champagne. If you can't be good at it. We'll see you next time, folks.